إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. Alhamdulillah, Allah has blessed us, in which we are now looking at the second half of prophecies covering until 100 AH. Please make dua for our printer. He is temperamental. We have resolved the issue with him, but we're not sure what new surprises he may try. So you just make dua for him. He's back online. He's doing what he's supposed to do. We're happy. So we spoke with him gently, and he's working. Now, with regards to the prophecies, what we have now that we're going to be starting with is the rest of the prophecies, as I said, for the second half of 100 AH. Now, initially when I was drafting this, I had all the centuries lined up. My only issue was the fulfillment prophecies I didn't have in chronological order. So inshallah, next week for the next century and onwards, not only will the centuries be in place, but the years that were fulfilled. So let's say if something was fulfilled in 150 AH and something else was fulfilled in 165, 150 will come before 165. Just for the sake of making it easier for you to refer back to the notes again and again, to make use of them. It's more systematic and it's more organized. I've tried to be as organized as possible, but this is a big area. We're trying to cover it as best we can to give it a mature, responsible reading. Now, in terms of our prophecies, we are starting today with the prophecy about the conquest of Mecca. This prophecy was made in Hadith as early as 2 AH. Although the ayah that we're going to be looking at, the prophecy in that ayah was around 7 or 8 AH. Right? But the prophecies about the conquest of Mecca were as early as 2 AH in the Hadith literature. So, Allah the Exalted says of the conquest of Mecca, لَقَدْ صَدَقَ اللَّهُ رَسُولَهُ الرُّؤْيَا بِالْحَقِّ لَتَدْخُلُنَّ الْمَسْجِدَ الْحَرَامَ إِنْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ إن شاء الله آمنين محلقين رؤوسكم ومقصرين لا تخافون فعلم ما لم تعلموا فجعل من دون ذلك فتحا قريبا. Allah did indeed show His messenger the true prophecy. You will certainly enter Al-Masjid Al-Haram if Allah so wills, in safety. Some of you will have shaved heads, while others will merely have their hair cut short, but none shall be in a state of fear. He knows what you do not know. He has given you, besides that, a clear victory. هو الذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله وكفى بالله شهيدا. He is the one who sent his messenger with the guidance and the religion of truth, so that he might make it manifest over all other religions. Allah is indeed sufficient as a witness. Surah Al-Fath, the 48th surah, ayat 27 to 28. Now, Imam Ibn Hisham, rahimahullah, in this portion, quotes the information about the fulfillment of this prophecy. This prophecy was fulfilled in 9 AH of the Hijrah. Ibn Hisham, Imam Abdul Malik ibn Hisham, rahimahullah, he says of the fulfillment of this prophecy, quote, after that the Prophet ﷺ came to the door of the Kaaba and gathered the people to him in the masjid. He said to those present, there is no God but Allah. He is alone and unique without partner. He has kept his promise, helped his slave, destroyed the confederates by him alone, safeguarded the blood and wealth, and put ancient revenge under my feet. And the only leadership here is in the feeding and giving service to the people coming to the ancient house. Assembly of Quraysh, Allah has taken from you the dust of the days of ignorance, as well as glorifying your fathers. The people come from Adam, and Adam is from dust. Mankind, know that we created you from a male and a female, and made you tribes and nations, so that you might know one another. The most noble of you in the sight of Allah is the one with the most piety. Surah Al-Hujurat, the 49th surah, ayah 13. So, assembly of Quraysh, what do you think I will do to you? Those assembled said, only good. You are an honorable brother and the son of an honorable brother. He said to them, go then, you are free. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ then sat down in the masjid, and Ali ibn Abi Talib came to him while he had the key of the Kaaba in his hand. He said, Messenger of Allah, gather for us the authority and the feeding of the pilgrims, may Allah bless you. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, where is Uthman ibn Talha? He called for him and said, this is your key, Uthman. Today is a day of righteousness and keeping duties. It was also on this day that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ destroyed every idol that was around or inside the ancient house. And this went on until there was not a single idol left. Some 360 idols inside of the noble Kaaba were removed and dashed to the ground. It was during that time that the Prophet ﷺ recited the ayah, the truth has come and falsehood has vanished. Indeed, falsehood is bound to vanish. Surah Al-Isra, the 17th surah, ayah 81. Close quote. So this brings us then to the fulfillment of these ayat. The first one regarding entrance into Mecca. The second regarding his religion being made dominant or manifest over all other religions. So all the idols were destroyed. Right? By this time, the children of Israel were either expelled from the peninsula, they'd been weakened. The Christians, they'd been weakened. Their strength base had been weakened. All other religions had been laid low. The conquest of Mecca was the culmination of all of that. Idols destroyed. Everything taken care of. Right? Now, the Imam goes on with this quote, and he takes us to the point to where he says, quote, Al-Masjid al-Haram was purified of idolatry and returned to the pristine state that it had been in more than 3,000 years ago when the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam and his son, the Prophet Ismail alayhi salam, rebuilt the site. He also saw pictures inside of the angels and others like Ibrahim alayhi salam drawn on the wall with arrows for divining in his hands and seeking decision with them. He sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, may Allah curse them. They have made our patriarch to seek decision by divining arrows. Ibrahim is greater than to do that. Ibrahim was neither a Jew nor a Christian, but a Muslim that was upright in faith, and he was not from the idol worshippers. Close quote. So this is Ibn Hisham's statement from volume 4, pages 40 to 43. So the Kaaba being purified of idols, the Kaaba being purified of the shirk and the other things, was a major turning point and was a prophecy given when Allah said, you will enter in. You will go there. Right? Another prophecy is the death of Fatima Az-Zahra alayha salam. Now, this prophecy was made on the 12th of Rabi' al-Awwal, 11 AH. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he is close to death. And this famous hadith in the Sahih from a Muslim, Fatima az-Zahra alayha salam said that she was missing her father greatly, and he was close to death. And he said to her, after this day, you shall suffer no more. Then she came, I shall suffer no more. Then she came forward, and he whispered something into her ear. And she smiled after this. Now he would later die, and she would narrate the event that I'm about to quote, in which the Prophet ﷺ said to Fatima alayha salam, do not mourn, you shall follow not long after me. Right? Now, Fatima, from the notes we have from Ibn Sa'ad, volume 8, pages 27 to 29, and At-Tabari, volume 3, pages 238 to 240. She died in the month of Ramadan, 11 AH, only 6 months or so thereafter. So Fatima Zahra dies not long after. So another fulfilled prophecy. We have another prophecy. This prophecy was made on the ninth year of the Hijrah, and it concerned the end of the Persian and Byzantine monarchies. Now understand, just like today, if you go back to the 1980s, you had two main empires, the American Empire and the Soviet Empire. And they had control over the world as it was known at that time. And that order passed away. The role of things for the Soviet order is now no more. The American order shall soon be no more. It is also passing away, and something else is coming in place of it. Well, in the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the equivalent of your Soviet and American influence was the Byzantine and the Persians. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu narrated that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam declared, the ruler of the Persians has died, and there shall be no monarch after him. When the Caesar of Byzantium dies, there will be no Caesar after him. This is collected by my Muslim. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam also said, and the Muslims will fight against them. So understand then, from this statement that we received in 9AH, that the Muslims will wind up fighting against these, and when the ruler of the Persians has died, known as the Khazraj, and the Caesar of Byzantium dies, that there will be no more. Remember, these institutions have been around for thousands of years. The Caesars of Rome, 2,000 years. The Khazraj of Iran, 3,000 years. So to make a statement like that is bold. Imam Yahya al-Nawawi rahimahullah, he says of the prophecy, As-Shafi'ii and As-Shafi'ii and the rest of the scholars have said that it refers to there being no Persian emissary in Iraq and no Caesar in Sham, as had been the case in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Their rule is thus to be lifted in these two provinces, and it was removed. In the case of the Persian ruler, his dominion was lifted and then eventually removed from all the lands around them. This was realized when he tore up the letter of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, and his kingdom was tore up in a similar fashion. Close quote. Now understand, go back to the Sirah of Ibn Hisham. When the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ sends out an emissary with a letter, and when the Persian ruler receives the letter, it's opened up and it's read to him with the following words: in the name of Allah, the Merciful, the Compassionate. From Muhammad, the Messenger of Allah, to Khazraj, the ruler over the Persians. He exploded with rage, got up from his throne, and tore the letter of the emissary into pieces, saying, how dare that miserable slave address me by my first name? And how dare he put his name before mine? So this prophecy is leaning on another prophecy. So he said, how dare he address me by my name? Because you didn't address people by their name, there was a title for them. So when the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gets back, he's informed by the emissary. And he says, well, his kingdom will be tore up likewise. The letter was torn in 1-2 motions, where it wound up in 4 pieces. The Persian Empire wound up being broken up into 4 pieces. So it was not only absorbed, it was not only defeated, but it was sectioned up. Right? Now Imam An-Nawawi rahimahullah, he carries on by saying, quote, in discussing the Caesar, he was pushed out of Sham, and his farthest exploits were entered and conquered by the Muslims, until both the Persians and the Muslims had their power lifted, and the Muslims were established in the earth. May Allah be praised. The Muslims have also spent the treasures of these lands in the cause of Allah, just as He sallallahu alaihi wasallam informed us. Close quote. Now the fulfillment of this that Imam An-Nawawi is quoting in volume 18, pages 41 to 42, as well as Ibn Sa'ad in volume 8, pages 27 to 29, and At-Tabari, volume 3, pages 238 to 240. This was fulfilled in 23 AH. What else is going on in 23 AH? The Khilafah of Umar radiyallahu anhu. So by the end of the Khilafah of Umar, which is 23 AH, this was realized. These 2 empires are no more. Now I want you to think about this, how significant this is. I want you to imagine a world in which there are 2 powers, which right now is set to be China and the United States, for right now. I want you to imagine then armies of 500,000 men, 300,000 men, and more being beaten, routed by armies of 50,000 men from a distant location that's landlocked, where they have fewer weapons, fewer troops, fewer infantry, fewer horses. And these men not only defeat those empires, but absorb and swallow them whole, and they take everything that they have and they make them part of this new group, this new tiny contingent that's come. That's literally the equivalent. If the people of Bhutan beat the United States and China in wars over 2 years, that's literally the equivalent of the earthquake of what happened in the fulfillment of these prophecies. This is huge. If you have an opportunity to think about it, try to find somewhere or someone who remembers, oh yeah, so can you just tell me what the Persian Empire looked like on a map? No one today remembers that. What did the Roman Empire, the Byzantine, the Eastern Roman Empire look like on a map? No one remembers that unless they're a historian. But if you tell them, oh, what does the American Empire look like? Well, they have 300 military bases. Such and such has this many military bases. So you need to understand the severity of these prophecies. Because during the time of the companions, these were things where there were only 2 powers in the world. Right? Now, we next have the prophecy of the conquest of Arabia, Persia and Byzantium. So not only were their monarchies done away with, but their empires were done away with. This prophecy was made in 6 years after the Hijrah. In a hadith collected by Imam ibn Majah and narrated by Jabir ibn Abdullah, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "You will fight against the Arabian Peninsula, and Allah will conquer it. Then you will fight against Persia, and Allah will conquer it. Then you will fight against Byzantium, and Allah will conquer it. Finally, you will fight the false Messiah, and Allah will conquer him." Nafi' said to Jabir, we do not see the false Messiah appearing until Byzantium is conquered. So he makes this statement to him. We don't understand anything but what you've told us. So Jabir ibn Abdullah, one of the companions, Nafi' says to him, we do not see the false Messiah appearing until Byzantium is conquered. We understand that. So with Byzantium being conquered, that sets into place other prophecies that are to come. Again, this was fulfilled in 23 AH. Ibn Hisham, volume 4, as well as Ibn Hajar in volume 12, pages 423 to 424. Understand, when he says you will fight against the Arabian Peninsula, someone might say, well, wait a minute. Why are they fighting against the Arabian Peninsula? Well, understand this. When Mecca was conquered, that doesn't mean that all of Arabia was Muslim after that. Mecca was, parts of Yemen were, but all of Arabia was not Muslim until around the death or just after of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then it was all Muslim. Many people understand that Mecca, understand this, when Mecca was conquered, two edicts had to be sent out. One, that no further mushrikeen were allowed to come to Al-Masjid al-Haram, which literally he cut off Hajj. No mushrikeen were able to make Hajj. And this triggered the war of Hunayn with the Hawazin and others. Because their argument was, who is he to stop us from making our time-honored sacrifices and visits to the ancient house to adore our gods? So it stopped that. Number two, the people that did come wanted to make tawaf completely naked. Stark naked. So two edicts were passed down. No one is to make tawaf around the Kaaba naked. And no one who's a mushrik is to come to that area to make the Hajj. It's not to be done. And that is the way that edict has been from then down to now. So when he says that you'll fight against the Arabian Peninsula, that's covering that period. Then you also have to understand that all that work that went into it, then conquering Persia, then conquering Byzantium. And it says, and Allah will conquer it. Because that's the victory. That's the victory coming from them. Now we have another prophecy. This prophecy was made in the year 9 AH. This was regarding Musaylama ibn Habib, who's coming from Al-Yamama, and Al-Aswad al-Ansi, who's coming from Yemen. In a collected hadith, in Al-Jami' al-Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari, Ubaydullah ibn Abdullah asked Ibn Abbas about the vision seen by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ibn Abbas remarked, it was mentioned to me that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, I was sleeping and saw therein placed in my hands 2 flimsy bracelets of gold, one on each wrist. I cut them off my wrist and disliked them very much. They were both brought to me and I blew on them. They flew away. These two symbolize the 2 great liars that shall appear. Ubaydullah ibn Abdullah stated, the first liar is Al-Aswad al-Ansi in Yemen. He was killed by Fayruz. The second bracelet is Musaylima. Close quote. Now understand, the one making commentary is a companion. So sometimes you'll get companions saying, listen, this was fulfilled in our time. Right, so this fulfillment, Al-Aswad al-Ansi was the first one in Yemen. He was killed by Fayruz. Fayruz is one of the companions. And Fayruz, for the record in Arabic, means turquoise. I don't know why his name was Fayruz, but that's in Arabic, Fayruz means turquoise. And Musaylima is the second, right? In the same collection of hadith, Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu narrated from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who said, I was sleeping and saw therein placed in my hands 2 flimsy bracelets of gold, one on each wrist. I cut them off my wrist and disliked them very much. They were both brought to me and I blew on them. They flew away. These 2 symbolize the 2 great liars that shall appear, one from Sana'a and another from Al-Yamama. Imam Al-Hajj al-Asqalani, citing Ibn Hisham and other channels, said the following about these narrations. He says, quote, this hadith indicates the low manner of these two individuals. The fact that he, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, could blow on the two of them and they go away shows the flimsiness of their affair. Al-Qadi ibn al-Arabi narrated that the tribulation brought by these two individuals was of great difficulty, the like of which the Muslims had not witnessed beforehand. I would say that it is just as he said, but there is also an indicator here that the narration of these two men is metaphorical and not literal. This explains why it is in the form of bracelets. Their flying away and when being blown on shows the fleeting nature of their age. Al-Qadi Iyad mentioned, the bracelets were on both of his hands, and the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam got rid of them. This can also be interpreted with further wisdom as he put them off on account of bracelets not being part of the jewelry permitted for men. Close quote. So understand then the fulfillment of this prophecy that he's mentioning, right, is that bracelets are not part of jewelry that's permitted for men. So when something is not permitted, to do it is the opposite. So when the Prophet ﷺ was given these two bracelets, he put them off, which means that they don't belong to him. They're not part of him. And that when he blew on them and they flew away, they're fleeting. You say, well, why is that significant? Well, remember, in the seerah, when Musaylima ibn Habib comes to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he comes as a new convert. He comes as a new convert. And part of what happened with him is he came from Al-Yamama and he expected to be accorded special treatment. And when he was treated like the rest of the Muslims, this angered him deeply. So he had come from Al-Yamama. He was a leader of his own people. Because Musaylima means little Muslim. Right? It means little Muslim because he was a new Muslim and he held himself in higher regard than the rest of them. And so he was told that he's a Musaylima, a little Muslim. You know, he's not greater than anyone else. He's not more special than anyone else. And this is part of what led him to take on the pretensions that he took on. So when he casts him off, he doesn't belong to him, meaning that he's not from the Muslims. He was never from them. And also those flimsy golden bracelets, because they don't belong to his ummah. They don't belong to his time. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, they're not from him, right? Imam Al-Hajj rahimahullah, he goes on to say, quoting Qadi Iyad, he says, quote, so this being on his wrists did not belong. Similarly, the lying false prophet has put himself where he does not belong. In addition to that, with them both being of gold, this emphasizes that their time is fleeing in the same way that gold loses its luster. Imam Al-Hajj mentions further, the clear understanding of the hadith is that at the time the vision was received, these two men were already present. There is the narration of Ibn Abbas in which the Prophet ﷺ said, They will come out after me. The reference to them coming out after his time means that their strength will grow, along with their warfare and false claim to prophethood. This was narrated by Imam Nawawi from the scholars. In this affair, some investigation is required, as all the tribulation that Al-Aswad began to bring occurred in Sana'a in the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ. Al-Ansi then claimed prophethood, began warring Muslims, assassinated a number of them, and conquered over the land of his domain. His power remained until he was killed, which occurred in the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ. With respect to Musaylima, he claimed prophethood in the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ, although his strength was not realized, and he did not start going to war with the Muslims until Abu Bakr was given the Khilafah. Thus, the hadith refers to them coming out and gaining power, while there is a true prophet in their midst. Close quote. So the fulfillment of this prophecy was in 11 AH, and we have this from Ibn Hisham, volume 4, pages 164 to 166, and Ibn Hajar in his commentary, volume 12, pages 423 to 424. So these people existed in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, but their strength, they didn't have the strength until after. when they began to gather armies, they began to gather strength. Because understand, when the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ dies, many of the Muslims were shocked. They were not able to digest this. They were overwhelmed by what had happened to them. So because of this, Abu Bakr then becomes the Khalifa. He's then brought forward and declared the Khalifa. He then receives notification that we are not paying Zakat al-Fitr any longer. Because we paid Zakat al-Fitr to Muhammad, who was a prophet. And Abu Bakr, you are no such thing. So we owe you nothing. So now he's the first day as Khalifa, or the first moments in as Khalifa, he has to deal with some of the people who had been claiming to be Muslims apostating. And then the rise of false prophets. So you had Musaylima ibn Habib, you had Al-Aswad al-Ansi, who had come first, and then at one point, Musaylima marries a woman named Sajjah, who's a false prophetess. And so now you have 3 false prophets. What? Now, the next prophecy we come to is the assassination of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu. This prophecy was 9 AH, and we have the notation of Ibn Sa'd and Al-Hakim, both collecting an authentic chain from Ibn Shihab az-Zuhri, who narrates that both Abu Bakr as-Siddiq and Al-Harith ibn Kalada were given some meat sent as a gift to Abu Bakr. Right? So this is someone, both these people are from the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They're contemporaries. Upon consumption, Al-Harith said to him, Khalifa of the Messenger of Allah, raise your hand from this meat. By Allah, indeed there is within it some poison, and you and I shall certainly die on the same day. This is collected by Al-Hakim al-Mustadrak, volume 3, pages 62 to 64. Now, Al-Waqidi and Al-Hakim both narrate the following statement from Aisha as-Siddiqa radiyallahu anha, who makes a similar statement. The beginning of the end for Abu Bakr started when he made ghusl on a cold day, on Monday, the 7th of Jumad al-Akhirah. He became progressively worse until he could not come out to lead the prayer. He then died on Tuesday, the 22nd of Jumad al-Akhirah, in the year 13 AH. He was 63 years of age at that time. So the fulfillment, prophecy was made 9 AH regarding this matter. The fulfillment was Tuesday, the 22nd of Jumad al-Akhirah. Right? Ibn Sa'd mentions this, volume 3, pages 180 to 182, and volume 3, pages 184 to 185. The next prophecy we have is the assassination of Umar al-Faruq. The date of this was made 9 AH. Ka'ab ibn al-Ahbar said to Umar al-Faruq, he said, I found your likeness mentioned in the Torah and that you will be killed as a martyr. Al-Faruq responded, shall I be martyred while I am in the Arabian Peninsula? Aslam mentioned that Umar al-Faruq said one day, Allah, sustain me with martyrdom in your path. Make my death to be in the land of your messenger. This is collected by Imam al-Bukhari in Al-Jami' al-Sahih. Ma'dan ibn Abi Talha stated one day, Umar stood on the minbar and gave a khutbah, stating, I saw a dream in which there was a rooster that pecked me twice. I know that this only refers to the end of me. The people command me that I gather together a body of people for events that shall occur after me. Indeed, Allah will not leave His religion or Khilafah without recourse. My time has come to an end. The Khilafah shall have a chosen body of people that are the 6 I indicate. They are the 6 who, when the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam died, He was pleased with them. It's collected by Al-Hakim in his Al-Mustadrak, volume 3, pages 89 to 91. This was fulfilled Wednesday, the 25th of Dhul-Hijjah, 23 AH, as sourced by As-Suyuti, pages 238-241, and Ibn Sa'ad, volume 3, pages 318 to 320. We also have the assassination of Uthman, Dhun Nurayn, the keeper of the two lights. He was married to two of the daughters of the Prophet ﷺ. One, then she died, alayhi salam, then he married a second daughter of the four. Then she died, alayhi salam. This prophecy was made 9 AH. It is in a collected hadith in Al-Jami' al-Sahih of Imam Bukhari. Ubaydullah ibn Abdullah asked Ibn Abbas about the vision seen by the Prophet ﷺ. Now, for whatever reason, this part of the page, I think this got either cut off or didn't print. But the vision seen by the Prophet ﷺ, I'll correct this and bring it. The vision seen was of the assassination of Uthman radiallahu anhu. So that's what the vision he's asking about is the vision of the assassination of Uthman radiallahu anhu. There is also another narration not in Al-Bukhari, which for whatever reason it's not here. It's not in Al-Bukhari, it's in Imam al-Suyuti's collection, in which the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he said that there shall be one among you killed in a time of tribulation. And it is indeed this man who resembles our father Ibrahim. And they were looking at a man walking who was wrapped up because it was very cold. So he was wrapped up all the way around his face. They couldn't tell. They could just see his eyes as he was walking. And when he sat down and revealed his face, it was Uthman radiallahu anhu. So his assassination was prophesied as well. Hudhayfa al-Yaman remarked, the first of the tribulations is the killing of Uthman ibn Affan, while the last of them is the appearance of the false Messiah. By the one who has my very soul in his hand, any man who dies while having an atom's weight of love in his heart for the killing of Uthman shall certainly follow the false Messiah if he lives to see him. If this individual does not live to see him, then he will certainly believe in the false Messiah in his very grave. Now, this fulfillment was in 35 AH. When Uthman radiallahu anhu was assassinated, he was martyred, as a source by As-Suyuti, pages 274 to 277. Now understand, Hudhayfa al-Yaman is a companion. So when he makes a categorical statement that the first of the tribulations is the killing of Uthman, the last is the appearance of the false Messiah. This is what's known as marfu'. Marfu' means when someone makes a categorical statement, and we know that it has to be coming from the Prophet ﷺ because he couldn't make it of his own accord. Like, for example, when Ali says in a hadith in the Musnad of Imam Ahmed that it is the sunnah to place the right hand on the left in prayer under the navel. The sunnah of who? The sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. So the fact of him saying it's the sunnah to do this, where could he have gotten that from? The only place he could have got it from was the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. So it must be he's quoting it in this fashion because it's something that's so well known that he's just mentioning this. So when Hudhayfa al-Yaman, who used to ask about the Prophet ﷺ about bad things that were to come, terrible things that were to come, who was the one who had the names of all the hypocrites written down. This Hudhayfa al-Yaman says, the first of the tribulations is the killing of Uthman ibn Affan. We can say, okay, this must be coming from the Prophet ﷺ because no companion would speak of his own self in this fashion. Now, the next prophecy is the prophecy of the assassination of Ali al-Murtada. The date for this was 9 AH. Its fulfillment was 40 AH, which is the assassination of Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, as is sourced by Ibn Hisham Ibn Hajar, volume 12, pages 423 to 424, and Al-Barzanji, pages 103 to 104. The Prophet ﷺ said, Ali is with the Quran, and the Quran is with him. He ﷺ also said, Ali, you will be fought on account of the understanding of the Quran, in just the same way as I was fought on account of its revelation. Now, these two ahadith go with a wider understanding, which is in Al-Bukhari, where the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he said that the worst of creation under the sky is the one who, the man named Uhaymir, who hamstrung the camel of the people of Thamud, and the one who will strike you, and he pointed to Ali ibn Abi Talib, and your beard will be soaked in your own blood. So these two statements are making reference, you'll be fought on account of, it's making reference to that hadith without quoting it. So I figured I'd just mention it here because it's useful. So this statement then, because you have to remember Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anh, when he was hit on top of his head, when the assassin hit him, the blood ran down on the sides of his face and down into his beard. So his beard was soaked red. Because Ali had an injury from the Battle of Khaybar. And the injury ran from the beginning of his hairline to the end of his hairline at the back of his head, near the nape of his neck. And the injury healed over, but it never fully closed his head. It didn't fully seal. So when that man came with the sword and he jumped as he struck him on the head, the blow of the sword, it actually entered that specific area and reopened it to the point where you could actually see through the skull of Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu. You could see into that area. And so the marrow and blood spilled out, and Ali, with all of his strength, he grabbed the man, and there was a struggle. So he didn't just go down, he grabbed the man, there was a struggle. So the Prophet ﷺ said, among the worst of creation is Uhaymir, who hamstrung the camel in the time of Thamud, and the one who'll strike you to where your beard shall be red, stained with your blood. Now, we have the assassination of Al-Hasan al-Mujtaba, alayhi salam, wa ala bihi. Prophecy was made 9 AH and fulfilled in 41 AH, as quoted by As-Suyuti, pages 310 to 313, Al-Barzanji, pages 103 to 104. There is a hadith collected by Imam al-Bukhari in Al-Jami' al-Sahih, in which the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was on the minbar while Al-Hasan was a small child, looking back and forth at him and the people. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ saw this action from his grandson and remarked, "This son of mine is a master. Allah will use him to make peace between two large bodies of Muslims at odds." Okay, now, there's a couple of things at work here. Firstly, you should understand that when Muawiyah became the Khalifa, before then, after Ali's assassination, Al-Hasan was the Khalifa for 6 months. All right, this is, someone, if they want to refer to it in detail, they can refer back to the 13th centuries, our history series. But Al-Hasan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam was Khalifa for 6 months. But the murder of Uthman had still not been resolved, and in addition to that, there were still bitter feelings, because Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan and Abdullah ibn Abi Sarh, all these people, they were first cousins of Uthman, and their grievance was they wanted that murder solved. As for Al-Hasan al-Mujtaba, he didn't have the wherewithal to deal with this. He just dealt with his father's death. There were all these other things that occurred. So he thought the best way to resolve the matter and the hostility was to self-abdicate. So he abdicated his Khilafah, gave it to Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, and informed Muawiyah about what he knew of the situation. And this led to what's known as the Year of Togetherness. And by his doing that, the odds that they were at, because Muawiyah and Ali radiallahu anhuma were both at odds regarding how to resolve their disputes. And it led to two very contentious conflicts. The most terrible of which was the conflict of Siffin, in which 10,000 companions died on both sides, trying to stop it. So it was a very terrible time. And Al-Hasan al-Mujtaba, alayhi salam, because of his foresight and his intelligence, he stopped any further bloodshed. There's also the statement of the Prophet ﷺ who said, Al-Hasan is from me and Al-Hussein is from Ali. This is collected by Imams Ahmad ibn Hanbal and Ibn Asakir, as cited by Imam al-Suyuti in Al-Jami' al-Saghir, Volume 1, pages 589 to 590. Now, there is another hadith besides this one that is also in Imam al-Suyuti's collection, in which after the Prophet ﷺ made that statement, the grandson started resembling who he made reference to. So Al-Hasan started resembling him, and Al-Hussein started resembling Ali. Now, to understand in perspective why this is such an amazing incident, understand Al-Hasan al-Mujtaba, alayhi salam, when he was martyred, he was poisoned. And he was poisoned by a disgruntled woman. He was poisoned by her. Now, his poisoning, he knew about upon the first bite. And he pardoned this woman. Now, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was poisoned by a disgruntled woman. And he wound up pardoning this same woman. And ultimately, the Prophet ﷺ died from the poisoning, just like ultimately Al-Hasan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam died from his poisoning. So he's like the Prophet ﷺ. He's like him. He had 4 wives. So he had multiple wives. Now let's look at Al-Hussein. Al-Hussein, in the conflict of Karbala, was hit on his head with a sword in much the same way as Ali, from the beginning of his hairline, from the nape of his neck. And that's how he wound up being killed. The same way that his father was killed is how he was killed. So that's why I said Al-Hasan is for me and Al-Hussein is for Ali. Because their lives and their deaths, the lives and deaths of these men, they followed along with whoever they were told that they resembled. Now, we come to another prophecy. This prophecy is the prophecy of the martyrdom of Ammar ibn Yasir. This prophecy was made 9 AH. It was fulfilled 40 AH, as mentioned by Nawawi, volume 18, pages 39 to 41, Ibn Hajar, volume 12, pages 423 to 424, and Al-Barzanji, pages 103 to 104. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned of Ammar ibn Yasir. What Ammar chose between the two options is indeed the most difficult one. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Ammar will be killed by a group in the wrong. Ammar, may Allah be pleased with him, radiallahu anhu, was with Ali ibn Abi Talib, radiallahu anhu, alayhi salam, in the battle of Siffin. And Ammar was killed by the forces of Muawiyah. This is this incident, this conflict we were talking about. Now, let's get the background. I'll give a very short background because it's been gone into in detail in the 13th centuries, a little bit more detail. After the martyrdom of Uthman radiallahu anhu, the Muslims were in two minds about what should be done. They were in two minds. Uthman's family, his first cousins, were Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, Abdullah ibn Abi Sarh, and several others. They said that the people should be investigated immediately and they should be brought to justice. They also protested about the fact that Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu removed all of the Bani Umayyah cousins of Uthman from their posts. During the reign of Uthman radiallahu anhu, some of his cousins, not all, some were oppressive and harsh on the people and punished them with punitive sentences and did very harsh things to them. Uthman was investigating the matter. When Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu became the Khalifa, he decided to launch an investigation, but an investigation in which he removed all of Uthman's cousins from their positions, whether they were complained of or not. This involved people such as Al-Amir Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, Abdullah ibn Abi Sarh over Egypt, and several others. And this led to feelings of anger because some of them weren't guilty and they felt, why are we being singled out when we didn't do anything? And then over and above that, our first cousin was killed. His wife comes missing her small finger and having that wrapped up and says, I barely escaped Uthman being killed because the seven assailants jumped over the fence of his house and went up into the window, and he was killed at his home. So they wanted an immediate resolving of this issue. However, when Ali ibn Abi Talib looked at the case, he took a different understanding. The first understanding he took was that the people that killed him were an organized group, and that in order to do that, you need to stabilize the Muslim governance and you need to stabilize the people, because there was a danger that these people could be in the army because they were trained people. Number two, every Khalifa thus far had been assassinated. So Ali moved the administrative capital of the Khilafah to Iraq because every single Khalifa before his time had been assassinated. Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman. So he decided to shift the Khilafah's administrative capacities. And then he finally said that the investigation of the cousins must be complete for the people to see that there's justice. So the conflict to do with Uthman weighed more greatly on Uthman's mind than anywhere else. And some of Uthman's cousins began to curse Ali radiallahu anhu and use terrible words about him because they said he doesn't care about Uthman, he doesn't care about anyone but what he's doing. Well, Aisha radiallahu anha at one point decided to go out and have a meeting with some of the other companions about what was going on. So she made her way to Iraq. The Khawarij attacked her encampment dressed as Ali's troops were, and the Khawarij attacked Ali's encampment bearing a banner resembling the banner of Aisha radiallahu anha. This led to the Battle of the Camel. But it wouldn't be until after the conflict of the Battle of the Camel and companions had died on both sides that Ali finally put together the pieces that there's something much bigger going on than just the murder of Uthman radiallahu anhu. The Battle of Siffin happened in a similar circumstance and was finally brought to an end because Amr ibn al-As and Abu Musa al-Ash'ari were able to broker some type of conciliatory cessation of arms. So this is what happened. Now Ammar, he stood right next to Ali. He stood with Ali. He said, no, I'm going with Ali, the Khalifa, because this is what's best. Wound up being killed in the conflict of Siffin. Imam Yahya an-Nawawi rahimahullah, he said of the matter, Quote, the scholars have mentioned that this is a clear proof that Ali, alayhi salam, radiallahu anhu, and those with him were the correct group, while the other group were in the wrong, but they have made ijtihad. So there is no sin upon them on account of that, as has been said on the matter previously. There is also another miracle in this area, as the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam speaks the truth. One point is that Ammar was indeed killed as a martyr, and Muslims killed him that were in the wrong. The companions were fighting among themselves, and there were two groups in the fight, the correct and the mistaken. And all of this happened like the coming of the dawn. May Allah send His peace and blessings upon His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who does not speak of his desire, but he only speaks revelation. The next prophecy we have is the martyrdom of Az-Zubayr ibn al-Awwam. This prophecy was made 10 AH. It was fulfilled 40 AH. As mentioned by As-Suyuti, pages 310 to 313, Ibn Hajar, volume 12, pages 423 to 424, and Al-Barzinji, pages 103 to 104. Now, understand, around this time of 40 AH, remember the famous hadith of the 10 promised paradise. By this time, all of the people promised paradise had been killed. Understand the significance of this. Abu Bakr was assassinated. Omar was assassinated. Uthman was assassinated. Ali was assassinated. Right? Talha died in one of the conflicts among the Muslims trying to resolve the matter. Az-Zubayr ibn al-Awwam died in one of the conflicts trying to resolve the matter. Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas dies as a martyr. Sa'id ibn Zayd dies as a martyr. Abdul Rahman ibn Auf dies as a martyr. Right? Abu Ubaid ibn al-Jarrah dies as a martyr. So all 10 of the companions that are mentioned, the 10 promised paradise, died as martyrs. And they were all dead, they were all martyred around this 40 AH period. So that's significant. Now, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to Az-Zubayr al-Awwam, you will be killed while oppressing Ali ibn Abi Talib. All right. Now this hadith is from a collection of Imam al-Suyuti's. All right. So he would be fighting. This hadith shows that he'll be fighting in the conflict of Siffin. He'll be fighting in the conflict of Siffin on the side of Muawiyah radiallahu anhu. Right? Now remember the statement of Imam al-Nawawi in the first paragraph that both these people are mujtahids because Muawiyah is the governor of Sham. And he's a scholar in his own right, and so is Ali. They both have different conclusions they've come to. Listen to what Imam al-Nawawi says in the first paragraph again. Those with him, referring to Ali, were the correct group, while the other group in the wrong, they had made ijtihad, so there is no sin upon them on account of that, as has been said on the matter previously. The matter previously means mujtahids, scholars of high rank. When these incidents occur, there's no sin upon them, because what was Muawiyah trying to do? Solve the murder of his cousin, stabilize the governance of the Muslims, and also stop his cousins from being oppressed that were innocent. So what was Ali trying to do to stabilize the situation of the Muslims? Number two, to find out who the people that killed him by stabilizing the army and finding out who was in the army. And much to Ali's wisdom, he was later killed by the Khawarij who had been sleeper cells inside of his army. Towards the end of his Khilafah, Ali split the army. He selected 400 men of his most trusted men, and he discussed all matters of war and stratagem with them, but he never discussed it with the rest of his army because he realized that the Khawarij were now inside of his army, and he did not want to take any risks. So Ali was correct, and this is the wisdom that he was correct, right? Muawiyah and the others were mistaken, but they were seeking the truth in this matter. They're mujtahids. So we say nothing about this matter about these people are sinful, they're sinful. Na'udhu billah. We don't say that. We say what the narrations say of the Prophet ﷺ and what the consensus is, that one group gets one reward because they were mistaken, and one group gets two because they were correct, because they're mujtahids. Even to ask any more about that is with lack of knowledge. Now, we come to the next, which is the prophecy of the Khilafah of Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. This prophecy was made on the 9th year after Hijrah and fulfilled 41 AH, which the source is from As-Suyuti, pages 310 to 313, Ibn Hajar, volume 12, pages 423 to 424, Al-Barzinji, pages 103 to 104. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said to Al-Amir Muawiyah one day, when the latter was assisting him with the bucket for wudu, Muawiyah, when you are given authority, then act with excellence. He then supplicated for Muawiyah by saying, Allah, make him a guide. Let him be guided and guide him. Collected by Imam al-Tirmidhi and Jami' al-Sunan. Now understand this. He didn't say if you're given authority. He said when you're given authority. When you're given imara. When you're given imara. Now, why is that so significant? Well, one of the titles of Muawiyah radiallahu anhu is Khal al-Mu'mineen, the uncle of the believers, because his sister is Habiba. And they're both the children of Abu Sufyan. So if Habiba is al-Mu'mineen, and that's our mother, paternal uncle in Arabic is Khal. Khal al-Mu'mineen. Whereas if it was paternal, it's Amul Mu'mineen. But he's Khal al-Mu'mineen. He is the maternal uncle of the believers. That's a title. Now another title of his is Al-Amir Muawiyah, because he was made the Amir over Sham, which is Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, Palestine, Israel. He was made the Amir over that area. And so he had Imara. Right? So he's told when you're given Imara, when you're given authority, right, then act with excellence. And then he made dua for him. Now I want you to look at the next statement. Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu said of Al-Amir Muawiyah, do not dislike the governance of Muawiyah. By Allah, if you lost him, you would have seen men with their heads parting from their should be necks. You would have seen men with their heads parting from their necks like the colocynth. This is from the Musannaf of Imam Abu Bakr ibn Abi Shayba, volume 7, pages 545 to 549. Okay, now why is this significant? Here's why. We have to, first of all, talk about the colocynth, because it's like, what's the significance of the colocynth? He said, do not dislike or detest the governance of Muawiyah. He just makes just a flat-out general statement. Don't detest it. Now remember, this is the same Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, when some of the people in Ali's encampment were angry and cursed Muawiyah. He said, don't curse Muawiyah and those people because the Abdal are in Sham. Which makes you understand that Ali understood that Muawiyah was one of them. So don't curse these people. So this idea that the companions had to have all enmity with each other or anything else, no, that's not what was meant at all. And he said, do not dislike the rule of Muawiyah, the governance. By Allah, if you lost him, you would have seen men with heads parting from their necks like the colocynth. So when that flower comes into fruition, the heads sort of pop off the stem. They just pop right off. The flowers that are on the stem, they pop right off. So what he means by that is, if you lose Muawiyah, the people that come behind him will just be cutting heads, just like the colocynth. They'll be oppressors and tyrants, just like the colocynth. So what he's saying is that Muawiyah is holding back people like this. He's stopping people like this. He's preventing people like this. Because Muawiyah was strong. We all remember the incident where the man attempted to assassinate Muawiyah during his khutbah in Sham. And Muawiyah, when he stabbed Muawiyah in the chest, Muawiyah said, you missed. And he removed the sword and he wound up killing that man. So Muawiyah had strength and he was respected by the people. So he says, if you remove this, their heads will be removed from their necks like the Colosseum. And after Muawiyah is exactly what happened. That period of oppression came in. Now, the next prophecy that we have is the prophecy of the 60th year. This prophecy was made. The date it was made was 9 AH. The fulfillment was 60 AH. The source is Ibn Sa'ad, volume 3, pages 338 to 341, and Ibn Hajar, volume 12, pages 423 to 424. It is narrated that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, "There will be a group after 60 years. فَخَلَفَ مِن بَعْدِهِمْ خَلْفٌ أَضَاعُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَاتَّبَعُوا الشَّهَوَاتِ فَسَوْفَ يَلْقَوْنَ غَيًّا." Then after them came a latter-day generation that left the prayer and followed their passions, so they will certainly face destruction. Surah Maryam, the 19th Surah, Ayah 59. There will then come a latter-day generation that recite the Quran, and it does not go past their throats. At that time, there will be 3 types of people reciting the Quran. The believer, number 1. Number 2, the hypocrite. Number 3, the rebellious sinner. It's collected by Tabarani and Al-Mu'jam Al-Awsat, volume 9, pages 129 to 131. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu used to say in the markets, "People, take hold of the head of Muawiyah. Allah, do not allow me to live till the year 60. Now, understand this. Take hold of the head of Muawiyah, meaning hold on to him as long as you can. Muawiyah radiallahu anhu was the leader of the Muslims as Khalifa for 19 years. So he ruled from 41 to 60. So he ruled for 19 years. And it's after that time. So the Prophet ﷺ, he's telling you right here in this hadith, there will be a group after 60 years. There will be a group after 60 years. How did he know to say after 60 years? 60. And Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu said, "I seek refuge in Allah from the 60th year." He died in year 59. He didn't want to see the 60th year. And when he mentioned this to the Prophet ﷺ, he told him not to worry himself because he will not live to see the 60th year. He died in year 59 after the Hijrah. Understand this. So when he dies, Muawiyah, Amir Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, Khal al-Mu'mineen, this brings in the reign of Yazid ibn Muawiyah, also sometimes referred to as Yazid al-Awwal, the first Yazid. Now, this is not to be confused with another Yazid who was a companion. Because, I just want to mention this very quickly, because if someone who is a villain happens to have a name, that does not mean that that name is only alone for villainy, and that only a person that's a villain has that name. So there's some people who think, again in the English-speaking world, that Yazid must be bad luck because Yazid ibn Muawiyah had this. No. There's Yazid ibn al-Aswad, who was a companion. There's Yazid ibn Muawiyah, who was a companion who had this name. Yazid literally means Zada Yazidu. It just means he increases. It doesn't mean anything else. It doesn't mean anything else but that. Zada Yazidu. He increased, he increases, or it increases. It doesn't mean anything bad. It's got nothing to do with luck. It doesn't have anything to do with, if you have that name, the name's numerical quality is 26, and something will happen to your children. They'll be born with cancer. No, none of that has anything to do. We're talking about the man in particular. 60 AH. brings the first layman to power, which is Yazid ibn Muawiyah. The first non-companion. Remember, Yazid ibn Muawiyah, what was he? He was a warlord. He was a warrior. That's what he did. And he was an excellent soldier. But he wasn't a companion, he wasn't a scholar. And these prophecies that the Prophet ﷺ made, some of them come around this year 60. The fact that there's an ayah, he quotes the ayah. There came after them a latter day generation that left the prayer and followed their passions. Remember, it's during the period of Yazid's rule that you had someone try to lead the Fajr in Al-Madinah as 4 rak'ahs because the man was drunk in the salah, because he'd been drinking all night. And then when he finished the prayer, he turned around and he said to the people, "Shall I pray some more for you?" He was drunk. He prayed 4 rak'ahs for Fajr. Even, I don't care how tired you are, if you do double shifts every day, you have enough sense in your head to not do Fajr as 4 rak'ah. I should hope that's the case. Allah protect us from a day we ever pray Fajr as 4 rak'ah. But these are the realities. So these are men that abandoned the prayer, or they drank, or they raped, or they did other things. It's so strange that Yazid ibn Muawiyah ruled for such a short period of time, between 2 and 4 years. And all this damage happens between this time from the 60th year. So understand this, why there's people seeking refuge from the 60th year. And he says they recite the Quran, but it doesn't go past their throats. There's all these calamities that occur. Now within this time, during the reign of Yazid, what follows on from Yazid the first's reign is we have the prophecy of the assassination of Al-Hussein ibn Ali, who's also known as Sayyid al-Shuhada alayhi salam. His prophecy is made in 9 AH. Its fulfillment was 62 AH. So we have Al-Hajj, volume 12, pages. Now that should be, instead of 423 to 424, it should be pages 433 to 434. Pages 433 to 434. As well as Al-Barzanji 103 to 104. Now, collected in a hadith by Al-Hakim al-Mustadrak, Fadl bint al-Harith narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said, "Jibreel came and informed me that my ummah would kill this son of mine, named Al-Hussein. And he also came to me with some of its red soil." Now, this statement that the Prophet ﷺ gives, he said, well, why? Because someone may ask, why is the Prophet ﷺ calling them his sons when they're his grandsons? Okay. The reason for this is because of their closeness with the Prophet ﷺ and their intense love for him and his love for them, he referred to them as his sons. Because it is through the lineage of these that the Khilafah, and lineage of these that you also have the Mahdi coming through this lineage and all these other people. So he refers to them as his sons. So whenever you say, well, the Prophet ﷺ, he referred to his sons, you're thinking, wait a minute, hold on. His sons all died. Well, yes, that's true, his blood sons. But spiritually, because of the rank of these two, their rank is such that he calls them his sons. He doesn't say my grandsons, right? He could have said my grandsons. There's a word in Arabic for grandson, but he didn't. He said my sons, right? So they're his. Now he says, Jibreel came and informed me that my ummah would kill, because they're people from his ummah. These aren't unbelievers doing it. These are people from his ummah. It wasn't the Byzantine, it wasn't the Romans. They're people from his ummah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that killed Al-Hussein. It's people from his ummah. So he said, some people from my ummah. Right? Al-Hussein, and he also came to me with some of its red soil. Its red soil, meaning the place where he would be killed, red soil. Now, if you take another hadith that's from Imam Suyuti's collection, the Prophet ﷺ also says, my son will fall at the banks of the Euphrates River. And you go there, you see his red soil there. Right? So the angel Jibreel alayhi salam, he brought some of that red soil to say, this is where he will be killed. That red soil at the banks of the Euphrates. Al-Hussein ibn Ali radiallahu anh, when he left from Mecca to make his way to Al-Kufa, people advised him not to go. Al-Hussein said in response, my father, meaning the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, told me that the sanctity of Mecca would be violated. That I be killed outside of it by a handspan is more beloved to me than being killed inside of its boundaries. This indeed occurred in the era of Yazid, just as had occurred in the time of Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, at the time that he sent out Al-Hajj ibn Yusuf to enforce the rule, killing Abdullah ibn al-Zubayr and demolishing the Kaaba. The Kaaba would be violated yet again in the era of Abu Tahir al-Qarmati. This has also occurred a number of times subsequent to the aforementioned. One such instance in which many of the household of the Prophet ﷺ from the house of Al-Hasan were killed. Okay, understand this then. So Al-Hussein is told, he already knows he's going to be martyred. So he's headed out. And they're saying, no, stay behind here. But he says, no, I'm meant to head out. Number two, the sanctuary of this area is going to be violated. Remember, when Abdul Malik ibn Marwan wanted complete control over the Khilafah, he sent out his most ruthless soldier, Al-Hajj ibn Yusuf. And he and Abdullah ibn Zubayr, radiallahu anhu amir al-mu'mineen, fought to almost a stalemate. And Abdullah ibn Zubayr, coming under a hail of arrows, sought refuge in Al-Masjid al-Haram. When he comes to Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, he's told, flush him out. So he goes and he gets heated rocks and fires them with catapults, demolishing the Kaaba inadvertently down to its foundations and killing Abdullah ibn Zubayr in the process. So the Kaaba that we see today was rebuilt from the time after Abdullah ibn Zubayr and also a time after that, because it's been attacked and sacked numerous times. This incident that's occurred this time from 60 AH onwards brought in numerous demolishings of the Kaaba, numerous times. The most recent incident was 1925, where cannonballs were fired into it and the curtains were burned. So it's not like this hasn't happened before. Now, Al-Hussein, Yazid is an ijtihad was made by Al-Amir Muawiyah radiallahu anhu before he dies. He had been looking at the fact that all the Khalifas up until his time had been murdered, and that there'd been a period of chaos, a layover, until the next Khalifa was brought forward. He wanted to avoid this. So what did he do? He created what's known as a transitional government. So while the next Khalifa is being prepared, a transitional government is in place to turn it over. We know this because Iraq and a whole bunch of other places gave their bay'ah to Al-Hussein ibn Ali alayhi salam. So we know that it was never meant for Yazid to stay in there permanently. Well, Yazid then decides that he's not going to leave. He stays in. And so by staying in, this conflict is created between laymen who have decided to take power by any means necessary, and the scholars who have the jurisdictional global right to rule temporally and spiritually. This is where the battles began. And this battle has carried on for 1,300 years or more. So understand, this is what's been happening. So when someone says, well, I don't want to be ruled by any mullahs or anything like that, you haven't been, genius. For the past 1,300 years, it's been back and forth with these fleshly carnal rulers that have been running things. Military dictators, kings, sultans, vassal rulers, protectorate rulers, different governors, county clerks, whoever they are. Back and forth, this struggle has existed between these people. And it started with 60 AH. And that's why so many people said, I seek refuge in Allah from the 60th year. Because it opened up all those things. It made it possible to get to all those things. Now, keeping that in mind, with Al-Hussein ibn Ali alayhi salam, Sayyid al-Shuhada, him being martyred the 62nd, year 62 of the Hijrah, which happens on the 10th of Muharram, 62 AH. That's when he was martyred. Now, here's something important. He knows what's coming, but he wants water for those that are in his encampment at Karbala. Karbala, that area in Iraq, is actually a combination of two words. Karb and Bala. Karb is sadness or a calamity, and Bala is a trial. So over time, this happens a lot in Arabic, Karbala, it just became joined together. Like Hadramaut in Yemen, it's like the combination of Hadr and Maut. It just, over time, it's just become one statement. So Karb and Bala, calamity and trial, is just become put together. Now, in his time, it wasn't a sprawling township like it is today. It was just a city along that area. So he goes there on the 10th of Muharram, 62 AH. And he winds up being martyred there. Now, he dies fasting because he wasn't able to break his fast. He dies fasting. Same thing as his father, radiallahu anhu, who just finished his suhoor on the way to the masjid. So when the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-Hussein is from Ali, he meant it in as many ways possible. He meant it in as many ways as possible. So, Al-Hussein ibn Ali alayhi salam, he's fasting. Why is he fasting? He's following the hadith that's in the collection of Al-Bukhari. The fast of Ashura. We fast on this day because the children of Israel did it out of thanksgiving to Allah the Exalted, who liberated from the rule of Egypt. He liberated the Israelites. Not because we're commemorating him, because if we said we fast because of Al-Hussein, then why was he fasting on the day? He's commemorating himself? No, it's done because of Ashura. So this opens the door. So you have 60 AH, the Bani Umayyah, they come in. Now there's one other hadith that goes with this issue of the 60 AH that Imam an-Nawawi rahimahullah quotes. It's in the Sahih from a Muslim. And he said, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, quote, my ummah will suffer destruction. My ummah will suffer destruction at the hands. My ummah will suffer destruction at the hands of man-children from the Quraysh. My ummah will suffer destruction at the hands of man-children from Quraysh. Imam an-Nawawi says this refers to that period in volume 18 Nawawi in volume 18 of his Sharh on Sahih Muslim, he says it refers to that period of the Bani Umayyah. They say, well, what's a man-child? A man-child is someone who is not in the position of a man. He doesn't have the maturity or the rights or all the qualities. He's still a child. But he stepped into the post of a man. Yet he's still a baby. He's still a child. So you had people who were laymen giving khutbahs and trying to do durus in the Masjid al-Nabawi and trying to tell people, no, Dhuhr is this many rak'ah instead of this. And the people are completely confused. What is this man doing? This is what happened during the era of the Bani Umayyah. Absolute chaos. But the door was opened in 60 AH. So, I will close here to say, أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم أستغفر الله إن الله غفور رحيم حميد رحيمين ولا إله إلا الله. Now, I wanted to now open it up for questions because again, we're looking at from up until 100 AH. So next week, inshallah, we're going to be moving from 100 up to, we're going to be looking at the 2nd century. We're going to be looking all the way up to that point and seeing all the prophecies there. As I said, I'm following the pathway that the scholars have used of following a chronological order, because that way we can follow the prophecies that have been fulfilled, their completion, so that way we can follow this in a clear and systematic manner. In addition to this, as I said before in the introductory class, you'll notice there'll come a point when I say we get around the 1100 mark where the scholars will just start talking about certain prophecies, assuming that you already know all the other ones are fulfilled. They already know. Like Imam al-Safarini, he doesn't touch on prophecies about Constantinople, he doesn't even talk about those. The only prophecies he's interested in talking about are the unfulfilled ones, because you should already know all the other ones are done. So he doesn't even talk about those. Right? So, inshallah, we say أقول قولي هذا استغفر الله لي ولكم واستغفر الله إن الله غفور رحيم حميد رحيمين. So we open the floor for questions if there are questions of what we've covered so far. Questions? Yes.
What's it mean by rebellious sinner? What's it mean by rebellious sinner?
Okay, the question is, what's intended by the expression rebellious sinner? That's a translation of the Arabic word fasiq. A rebellious sinner is someone who will openly commit sins, major and minor together. And so this person is guilty of those particular sins. That's the fasiq. Yes. Any other questions? Yes.
The Khalifas, you mentioned that they're rulers. Would they be considered the equivalents of kings?
Question is, would the Khalifas be the equivalent of kings? Alhamdulillah. No. The reason for this is because of the Hadith in Imam Suyuti's collection, where the Prophet ﷺ said, the Khilafah after me will be 30 years, then after shall come mulk, kingship. So there's a distinction between Khalifas and kings. They're not kings. Now the Khalifas that came in, say from Yazid down, they ruled pretty much like kings, where it was hereditary, because monarchy, a memlaka, is hereditary. It's absolute. Questioning can't be done, and they also can't be deposed. It's a lifelong post. Normally, when a monarchy is overthrown, the whole family's overthrown, right? Whereas a Khalifa, it's like, well, if the Khalifa is particularly wicked, but the governors of his local province aren't, then he's removed. But his governors aren't. So the whole thing isn't removed, because that would involve removing the entire revealed law. Because here's the thing. The Khilafah is a fruit of the revealed law, the Sharia. If the Sharia is being implemented, Khilafah is a fruit of that. So there can be Sharia without Khilafah, but there can be no Khilafah without Sharia. If you do not have the ability to implement things, it doesn't matter. You could say, I am the 56th Abbasid Khalifa and I have taken rules. Well, if you have no ability to implement your rule and to punish those that refuse to accept it, it's just a title. It's just a title. Yes?
The key to the Kaaba, is it still in the family with man?
Question is the key to the Kaaba still in the hand of the family of Uthman ibn Talha radiallahu anh? Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. No. This incident, when in 1925, when the area was taken over by the Al Saud family, everything was pretty much turned on its head. A number of people were escaping before that time. The people that ruled, the people that currently are the royal family of Jordan, were the Sharifs of Mecca. That's where they're from. And they were fleeing and looking for somewhere to live. So these people fled from Mecca to there. And so they lost, pretty much, they were there and in Iraq. This particular branch of the family of the Prophet ﷺ, they pretty much lost the shirt off their backs. They came with just the clothes hanging off them. They had nothing. And since that time, from 25 up until now, one clan has controlled the Al Saud from the Wuhayba clan. They've pretty much, from the Banu Tamim tribe, have just pretty much just ran things there. Yeah. Yes. So inshallah, if there's no, yes.
Assalamu alaikum. You spoke about briefly about Siffin, the Battle of Siffin.
Siffin.
Siffin, sorry. How does, you also spoke about the Battle of the Camels in detail. How does the Battle of Siffin differentiate itself from the Battle of the Camel? I mean, what was the cause of that, and what were the two sides?
Okay, so the question is, what were the different factors that led to the conflict of Siffin and the conflict of the camel? What were the differing matters? Alhamdulillah. The Battle of the Camel occurred because of the Khawarij attacking Ali's encampment with a banner resembling Aisha's to force a fight between them. And they did the same thing to Aisha's encampment in order to cause them to fight. And it wasn't until in the midst of the fighting that Ali realized what had happened. Well, the Battle of Siffin had to do with the precipitated events of Muawiyah wanting Uthman's murder solved and those matters resolved, his refusing to give bay'ah to Ali ibn Abi Talib and saying, well, I will continue to rule in Sham as the emir until Muawiyah's murder is solved. I will give bay'ah when Uthman's murder is solved. And so a series of conflicts and breakdowns and talks led to the Battle of Siffin. Yes. So, yes.
Do you know, with regards to the demolishing of the Kaaba, is that sort of referred to it going down to the foundations?
Okay, so the question is regarding the demolishing of the Kaaba that we covered today. Does this refer to going down to the foundations? Alhamdulillah. Yes, we're talking about the walls. So the walls were knocked down, and the foundation that's left, the actual large platform slab that it sits on, that's what was left. So the walls had to be built back up. The roof was gone, everything. Yeah. Yes. So, yes.
It's also mentioned that at the end of times, the Kaaba will be destroyed again. Is this true?
The question is regarding in the end of time that the Kaaba will be demolished again. Is this true? Alhamdulillah. Yes, there is a hadith that mentions this belongs to the signs of the end of time that the Muslims will not see. The demolishing of the Kaaba by the man coming from Dhu Suwayqatain. He'll be coming from Ethiopia, Abyssinia, and he will demolish the Kaaba brick by brick. Right. So yes, this will occur, but this will be after the cool wind has come and all the Muslims are deceased. So, with that being said, then we close here and we say Subhanaka Allahumma wa hamdika wa ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk innahu ghafurur rahim yarhamir rahimin wa la ilaha illa Allah. Wassalamu alaikum.